My name is Denise White, and I am the host of the Coffee in the Green Room podcast. Here in Coffee in the Green Room, we have those conversations that you may not have in front of the stage, but you have before you get on stage. Today, I am so excited to have entrepreneur Don Hayley here. Don, thank you so much for being here on the podcast with me.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So you are a pretty serious entrepreneur. So can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started?
Yeah, it was humble beginnings. So I came from a middle-class family. I grew up in Sarasota, Florida. Went to high school in Venice, and I was a prep cook, dishwasher. Paid for my own way through college, right? So I started in community college because I know I'm telling this story because I know your audience is maybe in the younger demographic and maybe want to hear the full entrepreneurship journey, right?
Yeah.
So I started as a prep cook, dishwasher, bar back, whatever I could do to really get myself into college because I was sold a dream, right? I was sold, if you get your college degree, you'll be able to be successful, the American dream, right?
Yeah.
So I got my college degree. I got honor society at my community college that I paid for, and then went to University of South Florida. So when I went to USF, I was like, what do I want to study? And I was a bar back at the time, and I always stress finding a mentor, and this is why. So when I was a bar back, it was at a high end environment for it's like a community for like wealthy people, right? So in that environment, I met a mentor that was a VP at Morgan Stanley, and he was like, hey, I know you're going to accounting, or I know you're going to USF. So I know you're going to USF. I'll introduce you to the dean, and you should discuss about the potential opportunities in business. So I met with the dean, and the dean suggested to go accounting because USF was a top 50 accounting school.
Wow.
And so I decided, okay, I'll be an accountant. That decision set me on my life path, right? That mentor set me on that life path. So while in college, I did the whole social thing. I was in a fraternity, but I was also in like the honor society for accounting, and it was called Beta Alpha Psi. And ultimately, what I discovered was, okay, I'm able to do a lot of these things. I'm able to be dynamic. I'm able to be a high functioning social guy. I was a social chair running events and parties for my school, or my my social circle, not my school. And then from there, I was still doing the bar backing, bartending thing. I was still working jobs, right? Because I was still paying my own way.
Yeah.
And this is a lesson of just determination, right? It's like it's not an easy path, right? So I'm working, a social guy, studying one of the hardest business majors, right? The dean was like, accounting is the top 50. We're one of the most difficult, it's one of the most difficult studies to do at the University of South Florida. So it wasn't an easy path. And I remember all my peers, and I was like, hosting events, doing the social thing, and all these, they're all accountants, right? They're like, how is this guy able to do all this and then also still get, high GPA honor society, right? So I just always found myself being able to be dynamic. So I'm just showing how, like, what's possible, right? Like, you can pretty much do anything if you just put your mind to it. So I was high functioning in all of those areas, and then I ended up getting an offer at Ernst & Young. So Ernst & Young is a Big Four accounting firm. Worked at Ernst & Young for a couple of years. I got my CPA license, and so I'm certified public accountant.
Nice.
And while I was at Ernst & Young, I was sold the dream. You get there, they treat you like royalty when you're like an intern, and then you go back to school for a little bit to get your 5th year and your credits for your CPA, and then you come back full time, right? So as an intern, I was super sold. I was like, oh, this place is amazing. They're flying me around. They're putting me up in the nicest hotels, the W Atlanta. It's like, oh, this is the life, right? So then you get to the real world, and you join them as a staff. Well, as a staff, you're pretty much like, you're working 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, especially in busy season. And for me, busy season was an interesting thing, right? So because I was a high performer, and initially I got put on a project that's only, like, you only go on like a project that's not year round, right? Mm-hmm. So I got put on a project that was only for like the busy season. It was like those little Moroccan oil shampoos. I don't know if I'm sure you've seen the blue one. Yeah, so I audited that company. They're a massive, huge company, and that was my first client. And basically I got transferred to another busy season because there's different every quarters, like every business, every major corporation has a different year end, which creates a busy season, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. So I rolled off of that one onto another one, and then onto another one, and then so I went on 6 busy seasons in a row, and I'm sure you can imagine I was like burnt out, right?
I can
'Cause
imagine.
most people only get 1 or 2 a year, right? So at most, and I went 6 busy seasons in a row, and I was burnt out. I was 40 pounds overweight because if you got to think, imagine this: like you're at your audit room, you're in an audit room. So an audit room is a table full of 6 auditors. So you have your staff, your senior staff, your managers, and then the partners and VC, not VCs, your senior managers, that's what it was called. They would be, they would pop in every now and then, right? So it's mainly your managers or seniors and your staff. Well, you're sitting there and you're there all day behind a laptop. You're there all day. So and now I understand health now, and I understand how important it is to be in the sun, how important it is to get sunlight, how important it is to eat healthy foods that aren't microwaved, that aren't shipped in full of seed oils, right? This is also an important lesson. So I was wondering why do I feel this way? Why do I feel so depressed? Why do I feel miserable? Why am I 40 pounds overweight? Well, they're shipping in food in plastic every day, right? So getting all these microplastics, getting all these seed oils, getting all these toxins in my body because it's, restaurants, ultimately, they have a lot of things in them, right? So it's just a good frame to understand about health and awareness. So like awareness creates power, right? So I looked around my audit room one day and I was like, man, like I don't like my body. I don't like who I am. Like I'm a shell of who I used to be. And I thought this was the dream. I thought I was, I did the thing. I did the 5 years of school. I got honors. I got my CPA license, one of the hardest things to get in the world, like one of the hardest certifications to get in the world. I did all the checkbox. I'm at Ernst & Young, the big 4 accounting firm, right? Like I did the whole thing. I did the game at the highest levels. I'm auditing the biggest companies in the world: Verizon, Jabil, Tech Data, like Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies. And I'm sitting in the rooms with the biggest players, right? So I'm understanding how these things work. And I was like, man, this doesn't feel like what I want to do. So I ended up leaving Ernst & Young, and I started a CPA firm where I perform CFO services for 7 and 8-figure entrepreneurs, honestly, in private equity and real estate. So I really started to learn the investing game there. So I'm setting the foundation of what I'm doing now, and why this is like the foundation of who I am in finance, right?
Yeah.
So and also the discovery of like entrepreneurship, it wasn't easy, right? Like it's so before I started my CPA firm was successful, I went all in on an event company, right? And that ended up failing. It put me in $50,000 of credit card debt. And then I went to Tony Robbins and I reframed my CPA license. And that's when I saw the opportunity for the CPA firm, right?
Did you go to Business Mastery or UPW?
I've done them all, but that initial event was UPW. And he does a lot of cool exercises.
Yeah.
And then I met this guy, Nick. So I had my CPA firm, my partner in the event company that failed. His name was Ratmir. We saw this guy, Nick, at a mastermind, and we ended up working for him for free for a year and built a global keynote speaking brand and we partnered with Tony Robbins within a year and a half, 2 years, China tours. So that really set me on the journey for personal development, right? So back to Tony, we've been to Business Mastery, Day with Destiny, 15, like we've been to 15 total. I've been to 15 total events for Tony. So that's all in me, right? As me, as you would say, right? So it's a great foundation to build on. I have the resources and tools necessary to really help people succeed in human performance and investing in general. So this led me on the journey of personal development. I worked with them gratefully for 4 years. I exited last year in 2022. And then since I was a brand consultant marketer for a while, and then now I primarily focus on my mastermind called Grid Masters. So what is Grid Masters? Grid Masters is a mastermind for entrepreneurs to really capitalize on the bull run, because I believe that the main problem I saw and the main problem I solved is that entrepreneurs and business owners or even just investors in general, they would do 2 things. They would follow trends, hype trends, which we saw this week, right? Bitcoin started crushing. I think it's up 20% this week.
Yep.
And they would follow friends, right? So back to the trends part, I teach positioning because the key element to success in the markets is positioning. all the smart investors have been buying since March or before even, right? The bull run
Yeah.
officially started in October of 2022, right? So,
Mhm.
that's a year ago that, people have been dollar cost averaging, accumulating. You're not putting your entire bag in, you're not putting your entire, financial portfolio in, but you're buying, you're seeing when there's more confirmations, you're putting more in, right? That's
Yeah.
effective risk management. So that's what we teach. We teach not to FOMO. We teach that risk is not required to get rich. It's
Ooh.
research. The more research you have is the more wealthy you can become, right? So
Yeah.
uh, I learned this from a mentor who spent 6 decades in the markets, managed $1 billion in assets, because I sought him out primarily because I was like, how do these market cycles work? Right. I had a friend that lost 8 figures, over $10 million in the crypto markets because
Wow.
he didn't understand market cycles. And I saw how he felt. I saw his energy. I saw like how, because the wins are great. It feels
Yeah.
great to win, but it feels a lot worse to lose because you're like, oh, what I could have had, right? He beat
Yeah.
the game. He beat the matrix, right? And then now he lost that much wealth, right? So it's like now he
Yep.
has to be back in the game. Uh, but that's all part of it, right? So it's all
Yeah.
part of the journey. It's all part of the lessons. It's all part of who we are as humans. The failures are going to come. There's no perfect life, right? Like I said, that business that failed, right? Like I've lost money in the markets as well, right? So it's all comes down to learning and moving forward, right? Because you're
Yeah.
going to fail. It's going to
Mhm.
happen every single time you do anything of great. You're going to fail multiple times to get to the outcome you want, right? It's going to
Yeah.
happen. So and I know I went on a long tangent there of how I got started in entrepreneurship, where I'm at now, and what I'm doing. So if you want to have any follow up questions or any questions there, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do. You've shared the stage with some of the greatest minds in our time right now. So can
Mhm.
you talk about going, getting, going from where you started? Okay. So you started as a barback, you started in accounting, then you're like, okay, you know what? This isn't the life I want. A lot of my audience will totally relate to what you're saying because
Mhm.
you know what I mean, I know personally, I was told, okay, you need to go to college and get your 4-year degree. I went to Temple University, I got my degree in English, and now here I am. That's like,
Yeah.
why do we believe that? But it's what we were taught.
Mhm.
So can you talk about going from like that to where you are now? Like you again, you've shared the stage with some of the biggest names that everyone knows. What is that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just want to touch on the education system, right, or the system in general, and then I'll mention what it's like to be around the high profile people. So the education system, right, is designed in a way for people. There's a similar system across all education, financial education, regular education. It's just like it's designed in a way for people not to think critically, to not think to
Yeah.
win, right? So I can say this because I went to the highest levels of, business education, like, I mean, I didn't do the MBA, but like accounting is pretty high level education.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
to get a CPA, I mean, there's really not many other certifications that you can say are more credentialed, right? So
True.
I've done super high level education, and ultimately, it didn't make, I mean, foundationally it's in me and it definitely supports me, as a financial expert. But what I'm saying is it's not something that has you successful in business, right?
Yeah.
Because business and creating companies and creating, being an entrepreneur, it's great to have accounting schools for sure. But like maybe, I'm not sure what you would learn in a marketing degree or any of the other kind of degrees that would be actually beneficial for you. So like, you see like Andrew Tate talking about like, don't go to school. He just bought university.com. Like it's a big scam. And, I'm in agreement in the sense that the school system is very designed to create people that aren't free thinkers, that aren't.
Yeah, it was literally created to the education system as we know it now was literally created to create followers, not
Right.
leaders.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you want to know like if you want to know the reason of things, you have to look at the history, right? I actually
Yeah.
just posted this on my Instagram. Is like if you look at the history of how the school system was developed, you understand why. So I could tell a quick story and a metaphor around that. So there was an empire. It was called the Prussian Empire,
Mhm.
and back in the day, they were the most highly educated empire in the history. Right? They highly
Mhm.
educated their people. They gave them all the free access to the infinite information and the knowledge. So everyone was a free thinker. Everyone is like highly intelligent. Well, then there was a war with the barbarians, and they ended up losing the war because the people that were so highly educated are like, why am I going to die for the Prussian Empire? Why would I do that? Doesn't make sense. Why are we going to war with these people? You know what I mean? It doesn't,
Yeah.
I don't understand. So they ended up losing the war. Okay, well, what did they had to do? They had to redesign a system. They had to redesign a system for their empire in order to succeed. So what did they do? They designed a system for the elites where they only educated a certain fraction of their entire population to be free thinkers, because you do need them
Wow.
to evolve a community, to evolve a
Mhm.
country, right?
Yeah.
But you don't need everyone to be free thinkers. You need majority of the people to not be free thinkers, to follow
Mhm.
the system, to follow the structure, to go to war for their country, right? So
Yeah.
that was the issue. That was the main thing that was propagated in the United States, and they did that in 1888, and they revolutionized the entire school system to that specific thing. And there was like 13 elite colleges, or schools in general for the elite families. And you can look into it. It's called Trivium. So,
Oh.
looking into the history, it's talking about liberal arts. And anyways, I'm not going deep into that
No,
rabbit hole.
I've heard a different derivation of that. So
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
Yeah. So when you look into the deeper layers of why things, that's what I do. I research and I say, why do things work this way? Why does the world work this way? Why are people operating this way? Right? Because if
Yeah.
they had the different set of information, like, you know, what we learn, I'm also an NLP master coach and trainer, and one of the main things you learn is respect people's model of the world, because they have different conditioning, they have different models of belief, they have different history,
Mhm.
based on, their creation.
Yeah.
So throughout our life, we're given conditions. We're given, since we're born, our mom said not to do this, our dad said not to do this, or,
Yeah.
took away love because you did this or didn't, so you create conditions to survive. We're
Yeah.
survival creatures, right? So back in the historic days, if you did not perform as a society, like like you'd really die, right? If
Yeah.
you
You'd
didn't,
be left to die, literally.
yeah.
Yeah,
If you
it's the
didn't
truth.
perform as a good society member, you would be left to die. You wouldn't be food, right? You
Yeah.
wouldn't be pet food, etc. So it's in our DNA, it's in our, in our subconscious mind to, hey, like if we are rejected, we will die. Right. So
Yeah.
in this society, we've developed a system where you don't even have to leave your house and you can live. You can literally not leave your house. You have instant delivery, you have all this stuff. You don't even have to leave your house anymore and you can live. You don't need people to survive.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dichotomy, but what I'm saying is the conditioning that is placed on us throughout our life creates the model of the world we perceive, right?
Yeah.
So perception is projection, in the sense that when we perceive something, it's through our lens.
Yeah.
So what you say and what I say is completely different, or I meant to say see. What you see and what I see in a
Yeah.
world is completely different based on all of the conditionings of the past, right? And
Yeah.
what we learn in NLP is the energy that gets stuck in us, like the traumas, the fears, the anger, that's not released, that's also part of the projection, right?
Mhm.
Because you're projecting the reality you live consistently. So
Yeah.
uh my thought process on that was, I lost track. Where were we on? Sorry.
We were
uh
talking about I was asking about what it was like to go from where you were to sharing stages with some of the greatest
uh,
minds in the world.
yeah, okay, so I'll close that loop with just an exercise real quick. So, I want you to think of a dog. What is the first picture of a dog for you?
Probably our first family dog.
Which was what?
He was a mix of a yellow lab and a German shepherd. His name was Bear White.
So yeah. So mine is a German Shepherd. His name is Max, right? Because it was my family dog that I grew up with, right? And
Yeah.
everyone listening to this probably thought of a different picture of a different dog, right?
Yeah.
So that is an example of how my words that I'm saying, everything I say is probably, every person listening will resonate at a different level, because they
Yeah.
have different experiences, different thoughts, different reference experiences to the words that I'm saying. So every word has a different association in the language for every person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, um, and I just wanted to close the loop on the education system there. And that's why, like, I'm developing a community and a mastermind, is because at the end of the day, there's a lot of injustice around education.
Yeah.
And I went on a journey of research, and I've hit all these different lanes, like personal growth, like with the NLP stuff, and then really understanding the education system, and then now investing, right? So I've been through this journey. I can take people through that journey a lot faster, because how I expedite things, how I create things is I find a mentor, I find a guide. I'm like, this person has done this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Let me extract as much information I can out of them, so I can condense decades into weeks, years, or
Hmm.
hours, right? So
Yeah,
years,
for sure.
months, hours. So people, I know your communities in the younger demographics. So I would seek out mentors. So I'm a good friend with Luke Belmar and Capital Club, and that's a great entrepreneurship community for young entrepreneurs, digital young entrepreneurs. And he absolutely crushed. He just launched recently. It's a phenomenal community. Um, yeah. Oh, and then back to the high profile people. So what you were saying is, what is it like to be around high profile people? At the end of the day, people are just people, right?
Yeah.
Like, they all talk, they all walk, they all eat, they all, they're
Yeah.
all this. The way you provide value to these people is you don't act like they're higher than you. I get in
Yeah.
these rooms and, like, I'm one with you. I'm a peer, right? The minute you start looking up to people is the minute you're not part of their crew. If you're
Yeah.
not part of their crew, then they're not going to respect you as part of their crew. So it's all an energy thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I've always been able to position myself in the highest rooms, with the highest people, no matter what group I go into, no matter what environment I'm in. I can go into any environment, find the leaders, and be associated with them, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's one of my main gifts, is because I can recognize greatness in people. It's not
Hmm.
because, it's with good intentions. Like, okay, how can I get around the best people, learn, and then add value, right?
Yeah.
I never, like, I actually struggle with asking for support from my friend group. That's like, because, like, I don't want to take anything. I don't like to take from people. I like to give. It's like
Yeah.
one of my things. So it's like, how do I position myself and add value to these people? And then naturally, these people will generally give, right? Like, oh, they'll
Yeah.
find ways to add value, just because of the law of reciprocity, right? So,
Hmm.
um, yeah. So
Yeah.
to answer your question, I mean, that's the main thing, and the main frame is to understand is, don't look up to people, look with people, be on their level.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they're mentors and stuff like that, and you want to learn from them, you can still do that same frame, but you got to have an open mind. You got to be
Yeah.
willing to take in information without. It's a different frame of, like, oh my God, I'm talking to this person, or hey, how can I learn from
Yeah.
this person? If that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's a different question, and questions create your reality. So the more questions and the proper questions you ask yourself, that's the reality you're going to create. So
Yeah, that's something we talk to our talent about all the time. Ask better questions and you'll get better answers. And I love the way that you framed it, is that when you're walking in, you're looking for the energy, and the first thing you're doing is, how can I add value to this person? And then people, when you're surrounding yourself by the right people, they automatically want to add value back to you. So there is that reciprocity. I love that.
yeah,
So here's a question I like to ask everyone on the podcast.
cool.
What do you want your legacy to be? How do you, like, in 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, it's got goosebumps. So it's I just want to be a support, bringing back a revolutionary, and bringing the global shift back to light, right? Love and purpose and intention, right? The world's in a really interesting place right now, and they need more leaders. They need more conscious leaders to step up, share their message, show what the real path is. Because, like, there's a lot of light in this world, and it's not really propagated inside the news and and social media. It's a lot in these conscious communities. So, like, I'm in some really high level. That's why I love masterminds. So I'm creating a mastermind, is because I really love that community connection. And a lot of the high people I know, they're not loud on social. They're not, like, so it's, like,
Yeah.
hard to see the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
So there needs to be more leaders that step up and convey this message, that really show, what the world really can be. I mean, there's so much beauty, there's so much love, there's so much light, if people are willing to see it. So that's my mission, is to really be a piece of that puzzle, share wisdom, share light, and show people the path to excellence. That's I have the formula, so let's go. Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. All right, Don. So how can people find you? But for my audience, if they want to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my main platform is Instagram. So Instagram.com/Don Hayley, or at Don Hayley, DonHayley. You'll find me there. And yeah, that's my main platform. So if you just want to reach out to me, shoot me a DM, say, hey, thank you so much for this message. Or if you want to reach out, you have any questions, would really appreciate that. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, Don, thank you so much for being here. I know you're busy. You're running a mastermind, doing all these amazing things. So I want to thank you so much for being on the Coffee in the Green Room podcast. And for anyone listening, please make sure you hit subscribe to the Coffee in the Green Room podcast, because I have so many more amazing guests coming up. If you thought Don was awesome, just wait and see what's coming up. So make sure you hit subscribe, and I will see you on the next podcast. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.